if you're an investor, putting that money somewhere else for the time being.
As if being a landlord was not already one of the most difficult jobs that you could take on as a Canadian. We've got another article that we're going to go over here today, and the title of it is Toronto Passes a Motion to Ban Renovictions. If you are a landlord in the Greater Toronto Area or in Toronto, you already know what Renovictions is. Unfortunately, this is just another issue moving forward. If you are a landlord and you want to make some adjustments to your property, we're going to get into the article here and give you the nitty-gritty on what is actually happening. My name is Mike Carpino. Once again, we're going to cover an article here. Today, the article here is from stories.com. If you want any real estate advice or if there's anything that I might be able to help you with in the Greater Toronto Area, feel free to reach out to me. My contact information is in the first link in the description box down below. Or you can click the first link, which will give you a 30-minute client consultation appointment with me. We can chat about what might work for you in today's market, if there's something I can assist you with, and if there's not, that link will be there in every video in the future if you ever come back to the channel and you just want to discuss real estate with me. So let's dive into the article and see what the Renovictions issue really is today. So Toronto renters can rest a little easier thanks to a new motion that was passed yesterday that cracks down on Renovictions. Obviously, all the laws that are being added nowadays are in the beneficiary side of the renter. Unfortunately, the renter is not the one who's paying the actual mortgage to the bank companies, and the renter does have a lot more backing from the landlord-tenant board than the actual tenants do get. So let's see what Aaron Nicole Davis has to say in the article here. And this was just on June 27th, so a very recent article. So Toronto renters can rest a little easier thanks to a new motion that was passed in City Hall yesterday that bans renovictions. The practice is one that has been increasingly reported in the city and sees landlords kicking tenants out of rent-controlled units by claiming that the property requires renovations, only to then turn around and lease the unit at a higher price. In Toronto, all properties that were constructed prior to November 2018 are protected through rent control measures whereby landlords can only legally raise rents each year by a standard guideline increase, which is set out yearly by the Ontario government, and in 2024, that standard increase was 2.5%. Meanwhile, landlords who own properties, houses, condos, apartments built after November 2018 are theoretically free to raise their tenants' pricing on rent at any amount that they do decide. City prices have obviously climbed to new heights as of late, with tenants who are locked in to rent-controlled units, with tenants who know better than to leave. With the second highest rent in Canada behind Vancouver, obviously, one-bedroom units in Toronto are now going for an average of $24.79, and two bedrooms are priced at $32.84. The City of Toronto has turned its attention to Hamilton as an example of how they can ban renovictions and how it would work. In Hamilton, landlords must get permission from the city before doing any renovations that would require a tenant to move out. The new Toronto bylaw would require landlords to apply for a renovation license 7 days before issuing a notice to a tenant, produce an engineer's report that details why the necessary renovation needs to happen for the tenants to move out while the home is undergoing the renovations, and that would then be approved by the city staff. The move comes 1 year into Olivia Chow's role as mayor. Last June, as a mayoral frontrunner in the election, she said she would work on protecting renters by targeting renovictions. The motion was approved in a 22-1 decision in City Hall yesterday. Staff will bring forward this bylaw to the Planning and Housing Committee in October. All right, so this bylaw officially won't take place until October if it does get passed, but we have a 22-1 vote on it, so it's very likely that this will officially go through. Yes, renters do deserve a lot of rights because their living situation can be uprooted very, very easily if a landlord wants to do a renoviction, if a landlord's looking to move back into the property, or just if the landlord does want to sell that property. It ends up ruffling some feathers when this does happen, and you see tenants that feel the need to move. Whether or not it is something that they have to do or should do is beyond the point. It's just the uprooting of their actual comfortability going through the showings and going through that process. So what this is going to do here is it's just another barrier, unfortunately, for landlords to have to go over to do some work. That being said, You should be doing the work legally. You shouldn't be kicking a tenant out in order to get more for rent. When you buy a property as a landlord and as an investor, you should know your risks. Ultimately, you need to know what you're getting into, whether or not it makes sense for you. And you shouldn't be trying to jump through loopholes just to charge a little bit more or to kick a tenant out and uproot their lives. However, this is not the first backing that the renters have from the Government of Canada, from the City of Toronto, or from any city for that matter. The landlord-tenant board right now is extremely, extremely difficult to deal with. And if you have an issue with one of your tenants in your property, the likelihood that you might go without even getting payment from your tenant and a solution for over 6 to 12 months is extremely high. So the risk to even being a landlord anymore has really substantially changed over the last 12 months, or even since COVID, with a lot of the delays at the landlord-tenant board and that backlog that they've now accumulated. What I think is happening is, over time, I think what we're going to see is there's going to be just less interest at the end of the day in becoming a landlord because of all the additional loopholes you have to go through. It's not as easy to just buy an investment property if you have the extra cash on hand, rent it out to somebody, provide housing. There's a lot of rules, there's a lot of laws, and there's a lot of risks where you actually might lose more of your money than you even anticipate losing at the end of the day. Plus, the real estate market is not necessarily on the climb today. It's more plateaued for where we are. So you're not going to even have that appreciation in your property's pricing and the growth of your initial purchase price that you might have had if you bought it pre-2020 or 2017, for example, where you have some substantial growth in the price, and it makes up for any kind of issues or heartaches you might be challenging yourself with today. If you buy something as an investment property in 2024, the chance that your price goes up very much is pretty low, maybe 1 to 2%. So your risk to reward, very low. You might be better served if you're an investor putting that money somewhere else for the time being. Ultimately, if you find a good deal, you find a good deal. That's what it does come down to. And if you're an investor, that is more meaningful than anything else. Finding that good deal on the purchase, knowing that you got really good value, is where you're going to save yourself a lot of that cash in the long run. This is an interesting article, though. I know a lot of people who are landlords who are just fed up with the additional issues that keep popping up with their tenants, and then laws keep getting introduced to protect those tenants even further. And we've personally had clients who, you have a tenant in there, everything is going smooth, but a year later, they don't pay rent for 6 to 8 months, and there's not much you can do about it except for file with the landlord-tenant board and sit on your hands and wait. And even winning that court case at the end of the day, yes, you might be able to win it, but what if that tenant doesn't actually have the cash? Because as we went over here, $2,400 for a 1-bedroom, $3,200 for a 2-bedroom, it is not necessarily cheap to get into any type of housing, whether it's owning or renting nowadays. What I really want to know is, ultimately, is it attractive anymore to be an investor, to own a property and be a landlord in 2024? Let me know in the comment section down below. Would you entertain this with your extra capital if you had it? Would you put it in stocks? Would you put it in bonds? What would you do with your money in today's real estate climate? This definitely gives me some hesitation. I am a landlord. I treat my tenants well, but you just never know what the situation will bring. Thanks so much for watching this video. My name is Mike Carpino, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye for now.